Paul Shane and his friend Cameron Reid are remote control lovers. They both come from Vermont and they live there. They go to other countries like Antarctica and other places around the world to race. It was a Wednesday morning. The alarm went off. Paul hurried to press the alarm. He went to shower, changed his clothes and slowly packed his bag for the world tournament of remote control. He quickly grabbed his remote control from the set. RC stands for remote car. Paul has an M40 DT. His friend Cameron has a Traxxas. They're both short courses. The trip goes to America, Japan, Australia, terrain desert of Egypt, and Antarctica. First stop was America. Cam and Paul woke up all of a sudden. The bus had broken down with only a few miles to go. The bus driver quickly called an expert mechanic to fix the bus. Paul and Cam went out and excitedly tested their remote control while the bus driver saw the expert mechanic. A few minutes later, they were on their way to Miami, Florida. They had to sprint walk to the first race. The other races were angrily lined up and because they had to wait for Paul and Cam. There were a reverse buggy, short course. Paul clearly heard this go sign. Paul and Cam had a good start. They got to third and second and then in first in the last lap. Paul was first, Cam was second and A River was third. Paul crossed the line in first, Cam in second place with the A River right behind him. Everyone was happy because they got to race. The top six will be moving to the next stage, Japan. When they got to Japan, there was a rush to the second race. From Tokyo Airport, the boys needed to take a cab through the city and to the race. When Paul and Cam got there, it was filled with Chinese and Japanese people everywhere. The shove pushed and got to the starting line. Paul saw upgraded motors, batteries and professional drivers, but Paul and Cam had that already. When a Chinese person said a different language, Cam and Paul didn't know that he said go. All the Americans didn't know, so they were all last place. Then Paul and Cam took off and took third and second place. Just then Cam's RC flipped on the last lap, but he tumbled across the line in third place, quickly beating the other Americans to their knees. Now there were only 2 Americans and 2 Japanese left in the competition. After they were happily congratulated, Paul quickly checked up on how Cam's RC was doing. He had a broken motor, scraped paint, so Paul tried to do everything for his friend to continue in the competition. Paul quickly called RC shops around Tokyo and good news, there was one. Seller said he had an upgraded motor that he could install to Cam's RC and that he would do the paint job for Cam so he could continue to Australia. When Cam's RC was fixed, they went to Australia. The place was called Border City. That's where they are racing. They were within 24 hours and arrived there in time. When the race started, an RC caught on fire because of the motor. Paul finished third and just made it into the semi-finals. Cam came first, and the person that is second is a professional named Sean. When the leader said, we have 5 days of holidays before the race starts. When they got to Egypt, Paul and Cam went on the camera to see the track getting set up for the race. When the race started, it was all sand and massive hills to jump, especially the last one that you had to jump to the finish line. When the race started, Paul's RC got stuck on the sand. Cam and Sean were meters in front. Paul went to pick it up and the coach said, you can't pick it up. So Paul gunned his accelerator and Paul got it. A few minutes later, Paul got caught up. Sean was coming first. Then all of a sudden, his RC zoomed into the last jump and he came first. Paul was too busy looking around and went on top of Cam's RC. It made his crashing down and made Paul doing a front flip. Paul came second. When Paul came to say sorry, the commentator said Sean was disqualified because he used nitrous. Paul and Cam are into the last race. They celebrated for hours. Then Paul said, we were going to come against each other in Antarctica. Yeah, Paul said. In the next few days, they were in Antarctica to race. It was 0 degrees. Paul wore a lot of layers and layers of jumpers and coats. They had a chance to look at the track and test it. Paul went to look, while Cam went to look at the animals. They have 20 minutes until the race start. Paul and Cam were at the starting line, ready to race for $2 million in a trophy. The siren went. Paul led the way by 50 feet away from Cam. Cam took a risky overtake to take Paul's place, but just then Paul jumped onto a packing out rock. He jumped over it. He made him do a 360 and he landed it. They were still fighting for first base. The final jump was 30 metres away. In the finish line, all the other competitors were there to cheering for them. They were on the final straight to the finish line. Paul made his move by driving next to Cam and they were a tie. The jump was there. They jumped at the same time, the same height and the same speed, and they landed at the finish line. They didn't know who won, so they had to check the camera. It was close. Paul had his bull bar in front, but the leader said that didn't count. They had to wait for the results. So they went back to Vinewood and waited. They went to tournament headquarters. The leader announced the winner with a draw, so they both won $200 million in a trophy. They celebrated for hours. That was the amazing, not terrible, very good adventure about RC racing around the world.